Hi, everyone. Here we are on our last episode of the academic year. Today we have Paul Reeves sitting down with us today. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. What program did you graduate from and what year did you graduate?
Okay, I graduated from the psychology program and I believe it was 2009. So we're going back like 13 years.
Wow, very nice. Were you doing psychology the whole time, or did you switch from like one program to another? I know some people switch.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. I always, talk about this, and my wife hates when I talk about this because it makes me sound like a crazy person. But originally, my plan was I'm going to go to law school. So I got to York University and I said, okay, I'm going to be a law and society major, which was a double major. So I decided I'm really interested in psychology and I'm really interested in law and society. So let's do it. So law and society said, okay, that's great. So, you got to just sign up and pick your two majors. So I said, okay, I went to the psychology office and I signed up with my psychology major. And then they said, okay, well, now you've got to go do your sign up at the law and society office. And I said, where's that? And that was new to York. I didn't understand the scale of the school yet. And they explained that it was a long way away. So I decided, I'll just be a psychology major.
That's okay.
And that's how I chose my major. So I was a psychology major, always with the sort of end goal of just doing really well and then writing my LSATs to go to law school. But that's how I picked my major. And then with my electives, I took stuff that was sort of related to law and society.
Wow, I see. Hey, however, as long as you enjoyed it, it doesn't matter. You enjoyed it.
I had a great time.
Yeah. So then that's okay. I was originally going to do that too, law and society. It was one of my programs that I wanted to potentially get into, but I never ended up choosing it. But again, I was a lot interested in law, not so much anymore. So yeah, definitely understand. But a lot of people I know they want to be a lawyer. I have quite a few friends that do. So I totally understand.
I started taking my major. I did my first 2 years, and then I had an opportunity that, I just couldn't pass up to enter the professional world. So I essentially put my education on hold for a little while. I did a couple night courses and I entered the real world. And I did, I worked for 2 years and learned a ton, but then ultimately decided like it was really important for me to get back to school and earn my degree and go back to my path towards law school. But now, having had that sort of 2-year layoff, by the time I got back to school, I had friends that were, already down that path and in law school, and in some cases even articling. And when they started talking to me about articling and their first year of work in law, I sort of thought, you know what? Not so positive that that's actually what I want to do. So I always say that those 2 years that I took off maybe saved me from making a terrible mistake, because I don't know if being a lawyer at the end of the day was going to be what was going to make me happy. It turned out, I like to be in business and entrepreneurial, and perhaps those 2 years of sort of sabbatical, I should say, or whatever you want to call it, changed my life.
Wow. And your friends' experiences, were they was it their experiences stressful or
right? I mean, just the idea, getting up every morning, putting on a suit, going to an office, sitting at a desk, doing a lot of research and clerical work, and the opposite really of what an entrepreneur does on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
It's, very different. I mean, obviously there's aspects of those things, but it's not constant, and you're not doing it for somebody else, right? You're doing it to ultimately support your own business.
Well, glad it all worked out for you.
Yeah.
Did you want to go to Osgood though, if you were to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. That was the goal. Wanted to go to Osgood. I always, loved my experience at York University. I was an invigilator. I worked in the special needs invigilation department. I did all sorts of different things at that university, and really enjoyed my time.
Fantastic. That's quite a story there. Thank you for telling us about that. Maybe we'll hear more about it soon. Please explain the work you do for a career and what is your favorite part of your job?
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks for asking, Catherine. What do I do? Well, we manufacture, distribute, install really, really big ceiling fans. So it's a company called Refresh Fans. We're in the high volume, low speed fan industry. And what do I love about it? Honestly, I like making changes. I love the fact that we manufacture and sell a product that immediately affects our end users. So it cools their space, it saves energy, it helps with the environment, it cuts down on carbon emissions and greenhouse gases and all those fun things. It creates efficiencies with their existing HVAC systems. And right away, they see benefits right away. So, I love instant gratification. And with this company, I get to experience instant gratification all the time. So that's probably what I like the most about it.
Nice. And yeah, your name is really cool for the company too. Refresh. That's very
That
like
was a tough one. I had a lot of sleepless nights, thinking about how to come up with that name. Previous to this, I was the managing director of a company called Big Ass Fans. And
for real?
they are the largest HVLS fan company in the industry. And I opened up their Canadian office and grew that to the point where we sold the company at the end of 2017. So, it was tough coming up with a name after being called Big Ass Fans for so long. So, a lot of sleepless nights, and it came down. I was researching and I was like, well, this is a kind of like a rebirth, a refreshing thing. And I'm looking up, the sources and different words for those kinds of things. And then I ended up coming across this sort of like Buddhist design of swirling, and it looked really cool. And I'm like, I kind of want to incorporate that in the logo. And then I kind of looked up what that meant, and it actually meant like refresh, rebirths. And I was like, okay, Refresh Fans, let's go.
It's a really interesting name. And like you said, like the instant gratification and cools their spaces, and that's also said in the name of your company too. So that's very unique and interesting. Great stuff. And so it's workspaces, households.
Yeah, great question. So really it's more industrial and commercial spaces.
Okay.
So when I say a big fan, I do mean big. Like we started about 8 feet in diameter and go up to 24 feet in diameter. So,
oh, wow.
Picture like almost like a helicopter's props. So, nobody has put one in their living room yet, unless they were trying to fly, become part of the space program. But yeah, mostly large industrial spaces. So, anything usually 15-foot plus ceilings that has a large square footage footprint that uses a ton of, heating and cooling. We really help to offset the costs associated with that and improve ultimately the comfort in the space. So, yeah, mainly industrial and commercial applications are our customers.
Oh, okay. Sometimes have you ever done like more bigger houses, like really big houses? Have they ever?
So it has happened, yes. 95% of our business is commercial and industrial.
What are some of your passions and interests?
Oh, I love sports. I love music. I play drums. I mentioned earlier, I actually was a touring musician. So music, sports, I love food. I'm a steak enthusiast. I love my, spending time with my family and friends. I'm a pretty, normal guy, I guess. And I enjoy things that usually are somewhat creative and, physical.
Nice. So you're a touring musician. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, so I grew up in a musical family. My dad was always a musician. He's toured with people like Paul Anka. He's saxophone, flute, clarinet player.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. And so I kind of always grew up around music. So I started playing music at a really young age, and then at a certain point, after playing in all those, garage bands and all that kind of stuff, and playing for free for years and years and years, my dad gave me the opportunity to sell out. And he said, "Hey, Paul, do you want to get paid to play drums once in a while?" And at the time, being, a university kid, I said, yeah. I didn't even think that was possible. I thought that was only for like super professional musicians like my father. Turns out I was good enough to make a few dollars playing drums. So he kind of connected me with a few different agents and a few different band leaders. And then the bulk of my touring was actually, we were doing this, it was like sort of like an off-Broadway version of the Jersey Boys. I think it was called like New Jersey Nights or something like that. So got to travel around and play drums with a former Canadian Idol star, and do a whole bunch of gigs and see a lot of Canada that I may never have seen otherwise. So it was a lot of fun, but also, all good things must come to an end, and earning a living through doing music can be very stressful, not, necessarily being sure when your next paycheck or your next show is coming and all that kind of stuff. So eventually I sort of buckled down and got to work again.
Oh, well, that must have been when people ask you what you do and you say that you play drums. That must have been, you must have been proud of yourself and proud of and interested in the response.
Yeah, I always say, it sounds way more glamorous than it is. The reality is it's a lot of traveling, right? And
Yeah.
sleeping in hotel rooms and lonely, to be honest. So yeah, listen, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, but it's a tough job. I mean, if you're not, one of the biggest acts and, have everybody to do everything for you, it's a lot of work. And ultimately, it's not a get rich quick scheme, that's for sure.
Mm. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your time and were able to tour around. That's always really cool.
Absolutely.
And your and the sports, what sports do you like? Did you play any too?
I did. I grew up playing hockey and baseball pretty competitively, and then later in life, I really got into football, and I just love, like, I have Toronto Raptors season tickets. Like, I love going to the games. I love baseball. I share season tickets with 8 other people for that too. Like, I support all the Toronto teams. The Maple Leafs, would be nice if they won a Stanley Cup before I die. I really do hope that happens. They haven't won since I've been born, so it'd be great if
I know it's 67. I know it's been a long time.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, listen, I love the Raptors, I love the Jays, I love the Leafs, I love the New York Giants. They're my football team. And I guess, yeah, I enjoy sports. It's just, I grew up playing them, and I love to watch the talent from these kids today is unbelievable.
Yeah, and just the standards that they're put up to now, it's so intense compared to, like, I used to do research on like hockey players and the, like, when I was younger in the 50s and 60s and stuff, and there wasn't really much of a regiment. They would kind of, well, I was looking at the Leafs, they would like eat to whatever they wanted, sort of thing, and
Yep.
the workouts wasn't anything close to what we have now.
No.
And I did a lot of research on Tim Horton because I liked him a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
And he was very much into working out even as a teenager. And so it's interesting. It's just absolutely unfathomable how much it's changed and how high tech, high performance everything is, and everything's measured with technology.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Like, hockey players used to go, have a beer and a slice of pizza at intermission. Now they're having, intravenous hydration and a protein bar and getting back out there. It's a totally different world.
IV hydrate. I never heard of that. Wow, interesting.
Yeah, no, it's the sports world is definitely, I mean, like all world, right? Like business. I mean, it's evolved, it's constantly changing, and everybody's looking to get the edge, right? And, just like in business, if, you adapt or you die.
Mm-hmm. And even hockey, like total change in sticks. Like back then they would use the wood. Now they're totally different, and it's wow.
It hurts my heart every time I see one of those $350 sticks break.
And then the parents, when they see that, oh
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
they gotta get another one. I know they're so expensive. I know. Amazing. All right. What are your favorite memories as a student at York and as a member of Founders College?
Sure. So I mean, one of the biggest things I remember still about Founders College is going back and walking through and finding my grad picture in the hallway there.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was a big moment for me. And in general, York University was like, became a second home to me. When you're at university, I didn't go away, right? So I live in the GTA. So
Mhm.
for me, York University was, local, but the amount of time you spend there, the studying, back in the day, we used to just study in a library. I don't know if kids do that anymore with the internet. So, we like the
Mhm.
hours and days and weeks and months you spend there and surrounded by, other people that are really there to try and learn and build a future for themselves. And it's just, there's something unique about that, energy. There's not many places other than, university where you can be surrounded by so many like-minded people in terms of what they're actually there to accomplish, but with such varying viewpoints, right?
Yeah.
So you could have 1,000 different conversations in a day, get 1,000 different opinions, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you're all kind of united by the same goal. We're here, we want to higher education, we want to hopefully create better lives for ourselves, for our families in the futures. So it's just, for me, it was an awesome experience. I loved being at York University. um, I was there longer than most, right? Because I took those extra couple of years off, and then I had to finish off later, which was kind of awesome too, because it gave me an opportunity to meet new professors and new teachers and new TAs and new friends, frankly, that probably I otherwise wouldn't have met if I had just stayed in the cohort that was with me when I started. So I have nothing but fond memories, a lot of hard work, and I still remember, cramming for exams and thinking that, oh, university's so hard. And now, you look back and you be like, I'd trade it all for another year of university life.
So when you were doing your studies at York, I know with the pandemic, the online education has increased much more. And was it a lot different than it is now? And there was a lot less internet online components to your education than there is now, because you mentioned you spend a lot of time in the library.
Yeah. I mean, well, absolutely, it was a lot different than it is now during the pandemic. I mean, I it's drastically different. I mean, I'm assuming everything is online and professors are online and but um yeah, there was still like, I checked out books from a library
Quite often?
regularly.
Okay.
Yeah, regularly. I couldn't really write a paper at that time without doing, I mean, the internet obviously was around and was
Yeah, yeah,
great,
yeah. Mhm.
and it was awesome as um sort of like a secondary place to go for more data, more research, and there were like some compiled databases that were accepted by the university as like good sources of information. I can't remember the name of them right now for the life of me, but it wasn't the way that it is today. Like, I mean, I'll ask you the question because I'm genuinely interested, as somebody that's, experiencing this now. I mean, does the library serve the purpose it used to? Like, is the library still where you go to study, or has it moved to like more of a virtual community?
Well, for me, I don't. I've had some the first few years when I was starting university. I did check out some books because they wanted them specifically in the paper. I mean, I could have got them online now that I'm thinking of it, but I didn't. And a lot of my books that I purchased in the first few years were physical books of the books that we needed to read. But what I do now and what they offer now is, like you said, they have the databases, and I'm sure they're much more extensive now than they were before. But they have these databases where you can search up articles and you search keywords. It's called the Omni, and you search up keywords of what you need. and you look through journal articles, stuff like that. And some
Mhm.
of them, they even have the online version of the book. So you can
Mm.
search up whatever you need and the word that you need, specific topics within the book. You can search that within there. So it's much more different than if you were to get a book and then you'd have to go through the index and maybe can't find anything through the index. You just
Right.
have to keep reading. And then we have all our classes on this thing called e-class, and the classes are there and there's components of the course on there. Whether the course is fully online, then all the stuff will be there online, or if it's in person, then they'll have like whatever the professor chooses, like course materials or whatever, and then you'll meet in person. But you could, like, during the pandemic, you submit online.
Right.
They have the plagiarism checker and lots of other things.
That my last year, my honors year, was the first time I had to use the plagiarism checker. I remember that. So that would have been
Yeah, turn
like
it in.
2009. That's probably like 2008, 2009. That's probably when that started. And I'm sure it's much more sophisticated now. So basically what you're telling me is no more Dewey Decimal System.
Wait, what is that? I don't know what that is.
That's how you used to find a library book. It was the Dewey Decimal System. You had the library cards and the index system, and
yeah. I don't go to much.
Amazing. The world changes. I love it.
Like the index on the side of the book stands with the decimal on the side with the papers. Is that what you're saying? Okay, yes. I didn't know that was called that.
Listen,
Okay.
these are advancements. I love it.
Yeah, so it's unless people want like a quiet time to study at the library, yeah, you don't definitely by any case need to do it. You can do it online, whether you want to go to do from home, comfort of your home, go to a cafe, go to wherever you want to do it. But some people prefer, to get the quiet time, but it all depends on the person.
Yeah, I mean, we would a lot of times just get together and do study groups and things like that at the library, and or in different sections of the library, always break out and do that. So yeah, I'm sure obviously very different experience than it would be for any students going through the pandemic, version of university. And unfortunately, I think that's tough. I think that was, a really important part of, my development, and, those interactions and those friendships, and learning through sort of that collaborative effort. I think you could try to duplicate it online, doing things like this and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's just something unique about, people actually sharing the space and that energy and being together and having ideas flow. So I hope that, York and everywhere else can get back to that. And, I think that's a unique experience for people to have.
Yeah, it's still different, even though you try to mimic it. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. And some people miss that a lot, some people more than others, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, for sure. Everyone has like some people like people in person more versus online. Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much. And the unifying question, what inspired you to study the subject field that you have chosen?
So I was inspired to study psychology as my major, as I mentioned before, because the Law and Society office was just too far away. Like
legendary. This is legendary.
But in reality, I always had an interest in psychology. I specifically really developmental psychology. I remember being really fascinated by that, and like how the human brain starts to evolve from the time we're born until, adulthood. And it's just, it's fascinating. So it was just something that was interesting to me. Right. And I always thought the way people think is something that's incredibly, unique and fascinating and different from person to person. And if I could understand a little bit more about that, maybe I could understand people better in my life. So that's why I studied it. And, I still go back to lessons all the time that I learned in psychology in my everyday life today, even though I'm an entrepreneur and in business. You would think, well, what do the two have related? Well, frankly, you can't do business without dealing with people, and people have minds, and psychology is really a study of the mind. And it's been great. I mean, I don't I don't think that I should have done anything different. I'm glad that's what I studied. I think I learned a lot, and I apply it on a regular basis. You know, it's not like I went to school to be a, doctor and then became a fry cook. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
those two are unrelated, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't need to, I'd be better off studying science if I wanted to cook fries. I'd understand boiling points and heating and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
psychology is something that's universal, right? I mean, the human mind and people's reaction to things and people and different stressors and cues are interesting. And we experience them every day. So maybe I have a little bit of a better understanding than some, and that helps me, navigate life and business.
Yeah, that's one of those fields that you can apply to absolutely everything.
Mhm.
Because like you said, everyone has a mind. So, it's gonna come into practice. And compared to other things that you were to study, definitely. So I've never taken a psychology course, but I did
Take one.
I did take philosophy back in grade 12, and
Yeah, I took
that,
philosophy. Yeah.
that was hard, but because everything is very old and it's like a very different time period than what you're currently living in, so it takes a little
Well,
while to
yeah.
understand,
First,
but
you have to translate basically what they're saying to understand it in current terms, and then figure out the philosophical part of it. So, yeah, I remember philosophy is challenging, but philosophy is another fascinating field. I took philosophy courses in university, and really interesting stuff.
yeah, for sure. And so it was back in high school. I took it. They only offered it to one of the upper years, but I did well in the class, so that's good.
Good.
All right, amazing. So that concludes our interview. I wanted to thank you so much for joining us from the States for this interview via.
Oh, my
You already
pleasure. Yeah.
mentioned it.
I mean, that's one of the things, right? I have an international company, so I'm regularly traveling back and forth between our offices and, Ontario and here in Florida in the US. So glad I could be here and spend some time with you guys today. And I hope it was, I don't know, illuminating. I
That's
did
a
the
good
best I
term.
could.
That's a good. Yeah, no, that's shared pretty much.
Hope it was
The life
refreshing.
story. Yeah. Oh, yes, refreshing. Yes, that's a good way to put it in there. So he joined us from Florida, so I'm sure he feels much more refreshed in that way too. So
Yeah.
that's a fantastic thing with Zoom,
Yeah.
what you can do. So
Absolutely.
like I said, you're on our final episode of the year. So thank you for ending off our list of guests we had this year, and very nice to hear about your passions and how you came up with your degree. I've never heard such a unique story before, but that's cool. So I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you once again.
Thanks, Catherine. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a good day. See you later. Hi, Faces of Founders fans. I wanted to give you a huge thank you for all the wonderful support that you've given the show over the last academic year. I put my heart and soul into Faces of Founders, and it really means a lot to me when you take the time to view the show, comment, share. Endless thank yous. And now I hope you enjoy the rest of this clip.
I'm gonna make the time move slower. We can do whatever your sun's out. Make the clouds move